Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Pinnacle Financial Partners, an equal housing lender, committed to the dream of home ownership with $213 million in affordable home loans made to people of low to moderate income in 2023. PNFP.com/home.
I'm Khalil A. Colonna, and this is Nashville. Each weekday at noon, you'll find me here on 90.3 FM or WPLN.org. Join us as we explore the identity of our city and region. So today's show is all about voter registration. If you're asking why, well, you should know that we have some local primary elections coming up. You want to carry out your civic duty, right? We invite folks who are working on registering voters across Middle Tennessee. We also look for the disparities within who's signing up to vote and who has access in the first place. But first, the Putnam County School Board postponed a decision to eliminate the International Baccalaureate program after students rallied against the decision. Some worry that the move to ban the IB program is a part of a political and cultural struggle taking place in Tennessee schools. Here to fill us in on the details is Juliana Kim, education reporter at WPLN, and Quentin Ding, Jr. at Cookeville High School. Juliana, Quentin, welcome to This Is Nashville. Thank you for being here.
Hey, Khalil. It's great to talk to you again.
It's great to talk to you, too. Miss you in the studio, but we'll take this.
I know. I'm sad.
Nonetheless. So, Juju, start us off. What is the International Baccalaureate program, and why did the Putnam County School Board want to eliminate it?
Oh, yeah. So the IB program, which is a mouthful, but as the name suggests, it's a globally used curriculum that prepares students for college. And people are probably more familiar with AP or the Advanced Placement Program, but IB is kind of an alternative to that. And it's kind of funny because when I talk to students about whether AP and IB are comparable, they would probably say, heck no, because AP is generally kind of centered around test taking, while IB is more essay focused. And that's why students gravitate toward IB in the first place, because it's really evaluating whether students are becoming critical and independent thinkers. The situation in Cookeville, basically in January, the school kind of announced that they were considering phasing out the program. And similarly, that the next month, Ottawa High School in Chattanooga, or near Chattanooga, announced the possibility of similarly cutting their program. And their argument, basically, in both of those schools, their arguments are similar, which is not a surprising issue in schools generally, but it's the issue of what programs and opportunities are these schools going to prioritize with limited teachers, limited classrooms, and limited funding. And I think the pandemic exacerbated those issues and forced these schools to make some hard decisions.
Quentin, you reached out to Juju when you heard about this. Tell us, why were you so upset?
So I'd like to first point out that I'm not exactly well connected in the IB program. I'm primarily an AP student. So, of course, I don't have very strong attachments to the IB program in itself. However, what really caused me to react to this decision, and really all the other students, why we were so enraged by this decision, just how the school board handled themselves and how the school board came to this decision, because they had not consulted the teachers, they had not consulted the school administration, and of course they have not consulted the students. And when you're talking about removing a decade-old program like the IB program, I feel like it should be common sense to maybe consult the public.
Mm-hmm. When you mentioned, you said you're enraged. Tell me about the emotions of the students and your classmates when they heard about this decision.
Right. So when we first heard of the decision, we were a little bit shocked because we had no prior notice. And I think for the first couple of hours, or maybe the first day, we were just a little bit confused on what was happening, and we were still getting through that shock. And then the next day, after we were told of the decision, our teachers sat down, and our IB teachers sat down and had a talk with us about, the decision. And seeing some of them being really distraught about it and being very sad about it kind of seeped into us because I think a lot of our students have very strong personal relationships with their teachers, and that's why the IB program is so great, because it cultivates those relationships. So of course, when you see your teacher, very visibly upset about something, you're going to be upset about it. And it didn't take long until all the students began organizing themselves to respond.
Jake Dawes is a senior at Ottawa High School, which has also decided to phase out its IB program, as Juliana has mentioned. He recently addressed the Hamilton County School Board. Let's listen.
I once thought that education was just about passing a test. I once was a C and D student myself who did not give a second thought to my education. I was not amused by a standard education which asked me to memorize information and fill in a bubble. Learning about the IB program and its values-based teaching is what inspired me to take hold of my own education. IB taught me about a growth mindset and that it was my choice where I wanted my education to go. IB goes above and beyond by linking knowledge to the 7 classes, creating a better understanding of a topic, and using what I learned to form my own ideas. Overall, creating an education path that strengthened my critical thinking. Without IB, I wouldn't be where I am today. A student who once was a C/D student who failed kindergarten and had a hard time reading is now a straight A student who is number 3 in his class, following 2 other IB students, all because of IB.
Quentin, what's your reaction when hearing Jake describe what the IB program has meant to him?
Frankly, I'm not surprised at all. And going off what Juliana said earlier, the IB program caters to a different type of learner and a different type of student who maybe just does not do well under the standardized AP testing or anything of that sort. So in the IB program, you hear a lot of stories like Jake's, just because that is how it is, and that's how IB differs from AP. So not very surprising, to be honest.
Are you and your classmates getting support from your parents?
Yeah, so we were talking about this, Juliana and I, and what's so interesting about this specific initiative is that we used our parents as a tool in getting our agenda across or getting what we wanted, instead of the other way around, where it's usually parents using their kids to get what they want. But yes, a lot of our parents have reached out to the school board, and they did email, and they expressed their support too.
Now, you mentioned the school board. Has the school board been in communication with you all over this?
They have been in communication. I will give them that. But it's been very patchy. They've received a lot of emails from the students when this was first occurring in February, and their response was to respond to those emails with a copy and pasted email format, and that was understandable. However, the specific school board member I reached out to did respond personally to me, and there was a lot of back and forth and a lot of debate going on in that email, and a lot of questionable things were said. And I had shared that email to all of the parents and students that were involved in this process.
Juju, when you talk today, we've talked today about 2 school boards eliminating or considering elimination. What do you make of this? Do you see the decision as somehow political or a marker of the current state of our education system?
That's a good question. I think that there's 2 important takeaways to this, just for anyone listening, whether they know what IB is. I mean, it wasn't offered at my high school, so I understand if folks feel like, what the heck is IB? I don't have kids. Why does this matter to me? Why am I a stakeholder in this? I mean, there's 2 takeaways. One is that, this program in Tennessee is largely located in kind of our bigger metropolitan cities like Nashville and Memphis. And so when, smaller counties like Putnam have this internationally renowned program, I've heard stories that it's a reason that students and families move to the county or go to that public high school, or choose that public high school over a private school, right? And I think or a charter school. So I think that that's an important thing to note. And then the second thing, I think the common thread in all of this is that the issue at hand, which has been a common and an ongoing issue this year and last year, is that students care about what they're learning and they want to have agency in those decisions. So I think that that's relevant in what's happening with kind of this early college preparations program in these high school, and what's happening with other curriculums and those feuds that we're seeing in the legislature.
Quentin, as a student who's holding on and grabbing your agency, what is next for you and your classmates?
So, what a lot of our classmates have discussed and realized is that this type of process and this type of behavior from local elected officials is going to continue and seep over into other matters and not just IB. So, we fully expect them, the school system, to try and remove IB the next year and the year after that, and they will continually try and remove the IB program unless there's such an overwhelming amount of evidence that supports the IB program and its continuation. But as for what the students will do, I think the students are doing fine in what they're doing right now, and that is just waiting until something horrible that the school board has decided on, or is horrible that the local elected officials has decided on, and they will respond to that just as they responded to the IB program decision.
There's a couple months of school left. What are your plans for the summer?
What are my plans for the summer?
Yeah.
Well, hopefully, I've applied to a State Department program to study abroad in Taiwan, and hopefully reconnect to my cultural roots and learn a little bit about the language there. So hopefully I get into that program. But other than that, I'm not sure I have a plan.
That's awesome. That sounds great. That is Quentin Ding, junior at Cookeville High School. He was joined by Juliana Kim, education reporter at WPLN. Thank you both so much for being with us. We have to take a short break. When we come back, we get into voter registration with Citizen Nashville. We'll answer some of your burning questions about voting and talk to two people who are dedicated to making sure you know how to vote. And also tweet us your questions and comments at This Is Nashville. We'll be right back.
Funding for This Is Nashville comes from you, our listeners, and Music City Prep Clinic, Nashville-based provider for PrEP and offering comprehensive sexual health services in an environment designed to be safe, professional, and shame-free. Learn more at musiccityprep.org.
I'm Khalil A. Colonna, and this is Nashville. April 4th is the deadline for registering to vote in local elections. If you are new here, like me, you may not know how to register. If you've been here for a while, your registration may have lapsed. Today, we'll talk about how to cast a ballot and why it matters. My first guest is Tristan Gaspaderic. She is with Please Vote Nashville. Tristan, welcome to This Is Nashville. Thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
So tell me about Please Vote Nashville. First of all, I love the name. It's self-explanatory. But what inspired you to start it?
Well, it all started, I was really tired of fighting with my uncles on Facebook, and I felt that there had to be some sort of solution to the frustration I was feeling in 2016 after the election. And I had this hunch that my friends weren't voting, and I remember voting in a local election, and I was at the voting booth at 5 p.m. on election day, and there was only 6 people in my neighborhood in Inglewood who had voted.
Wow.
And so I just, I just thought to myself, I really don't think folks are engaged in voting. And, I looked into it, and it turns out, less than 20% of people are voting, and even less in some of these local elections. And so I got together with some other frustrated friends and literally in my living room, and we started to think about, well, what's the solution? What can we build? How can we be of service? And, we just sort of decided that we really needed to register people to vote. We wanted to educate everyone on the ballot because we knew that ballots are written at a graduate school reading level. And, for example, this May 3rd election has 89 candidates. And we thought, well, gee, who has time to research this many candidates thoroughly. And we also felt that we wanted to raise awareness around local elections. And so we thought about, just using social media, going right into people's feed to remind them of when things are happening, deadlines, and also creating poster campaigns around town just to say, hey, this is when the election is. So as we continued our work, we realized that a lot of organizations are registering people to vote, and also that a lot of people are registered, they're just not showing up. So we've focused lately on basically an all-volunteer free guide to voting in Davidson County. It's a zine. And in the last few years, we've partnered with an amazing illustrator, Cami Berrigan. So it's just this beautiful, it's called Ballot Breakdown, and it just profiles in a nonpartisan way, profiles every candidate on the ballot, and it's a free online PDF. And we've also partnered with The Contributor, as you know, which is a newspaper organization that helps lift our neighbors, our Nashville neighbors, out of homelessness. So it's printed in your Contributor, and that'll be coming out April 15th. And so you can help with homelessness in Nashville while also getting a physical paper copy of the guide. And if you're more of an online person, you can visit pleasevotenashville.org and download a free PDF.
Our political environment can be pretty divisive. I'm sorry. And so how does Please Vote Nashville help to try to navigate that?
Well, I think that one of the issues is that we found that most people that don't vote were raised in households that didn't talk about politics. And I could see somebody turning on CNN or turning on Fox News and having it feel really confrontational to be a part of the political process. But what we do is we cover who is the candidate, where are they from, what's their educational background, what is their volunteer experience, what offices have they held, how do they talk about their values. And by doing that, we sort of take the emotion out of it. We just profile these candidates, who are they? And then as a voter, you can say, hey, these are my values. I'm looking at this profile. I would much rather vote for, someone who volunteers in the community or someone who's a pastor than maybe a real estate agent, whatever however your values lay out. Or it kind of works for itself. And we don't ever get involved in telling anyone, any of our followers or anyone who reads our guide, we don't tell anyone how to vote. It's unemotional, really. It's just, a snapshot of who this person is and the hard facts on what they do on a daily basis for the community.
If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville, and I'm your host, Khalil A. Colonna. Citizen Nashville is the topic this hour. We're talking about the importance of voting with folks who are working to register people to vote. I'd like to bring in my next guest. Jimmy Garland is the president of the Clarksville branch of the NAACP. Jimmy, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Khalil, for inviting me.
Oh, really a pleasure to have you here with us, sir. So tell me, how did you get started in voter registration efforts?
Well, after a 29-year service with the military, my family and I, we settled in Clarksville, Tennessee as our home place. And right after that, I was trying to figure out, how do I give back to my community? Then I got involved in politics, and then I became totally engulfed in NAACP work, which is advocacy for civil rights.
Why is voting so important to you?
Voting is important to me because that is how we actually get people in office that think like we think, and also actually work on our behalf. A lot of people say that they don't have no reason to vote, but to make that statement is naive, because the reason why a lot of people don't have health care today, they don't have good jobs, they're not able to be able to afford the home that they want, is because they are not voting, because the people that are in office for party affiliation and not for public participation.
So talk to me about rural counties. What should we know about rural voters and their access to voting?
Well, I'm glad that you asked that question, because in Clarksville this year, we are going to be expanding our reach. Basically, over the last 10 or 15 years that I've been president of the local branch of NAACP, we've been focused just on Montgomery County. Well, this time we're going to be focusing on Montgomery, Houston County, Stewart County, and Robeson County. And the reason why we're doing that, Khalif, is because those counties don't have an advocacy organization that will actually help them to be able to navigate the things that politician does. You know, a politician, all he wants is your vote. Once they get in office, they do what they want to do. But if you know, like the young lady said just before me, if you know what their background is, and you know how they think, and you know what their beliefs are, then you get a better chance of having someone in public office that believe like you believe and will actually support your needs.
Okay, so more people tend to vote in national and statewide elections. Sure. But 2 years ago, less than 15% of Nashville's population cast a ballot in the general election for mayor. That's less than 15%. I'd like to hear from both of you on this. Why do you think so many people are choosing not to participate in elections? Tristan.
I think that there is a concerted effort to sort of obscure elections. And, I don't feel like there's really, in other states, there are state-funded voter guides that are very comprehensive that go out to all voting people. So I think a lot of it is just getting into the routine and being reminded about it, and being reminded about early voting. You know, it doesn't have to be on the day of the election. There's a 2-week period, and I think it's just not convenient. And so that's why we really work to make, we work to be of service in making it easy and convenient, and to get into the practice of it. And just to let everybody know, I think people feel, one of the reasons we know people don't vote is because they feel that their vote doesn't count. But I mean, we are looking at margins of 4,000 to 5,000 votes for these elections. So if there's any place that your vote really holds weight, it's in these primary elections. And we know that Davidson County mostly votes Democrat, but there's a difference between Democrats. And to say you're a conservative, or you're, normally vote Republican, you could vote in these elections to help choose a Democrat that aligns with your values. So I just think that it's dispelling this belief, and it's holding, I think politicians don't feel accountable because so few people vote. I think it really does matter, and it really does change how people behave in office, and it does change the stakes, and listening to your community, and being accountable to the needs of the community.
Jimmy, I'd like to hear your thoughts.
Well, one of the main reasons why people of color are not voting is because of voter suppression tactics that are being employed by the people in positions of authority. Also, a lot of people think in off years election, like what we're coming up on now, that there's no reason to vote. Well, during the off year election, that's when you have your state senator, your House representatives, your school board representatives, your county commissioners, and your city council. All of those people affect what you can actually put on the table when it comes to the dollars that you make. And a lot of people, they're looking at, well, this is a red state, so they are going to win anyway. Well, the bottom line is, the state might be red now, but they don't have to remain red. If the people would actually decide that they want to make a difference for the people of Tennessee, if they really want good health care, if they really want to be able to have good jobs, they will go to the polls this year, just like they did in 2020. Even though the numbers were low, the people did come out in 2020. And we are hoping that the same thing will happen in 22 and even more so in 2024.
We have a listener question on voting that I'd like to share with you both. Joseph from Brentwood asks, which areas have been changed due to redistricting this year, and where are the new congressional and district maps? Jimmy, you want to take this one?
Well, my response to that is that many voters will be displaced, will be moved to other polling places as a result of redistricting. What I ask them to do is make sure that they go down to the Elections Commission before the vote and and ask them where are they supposed to go to vote. Even if you don't, and the Election Commission is also supposed to send you a new card based on the fact of your new voting area. But if you don't get a card, and if you forget to go down to your election commission, go to the place where you have normally voted, because at that place, even if your name is not on their list, you can file a provisional ballot. And don't leave there without filing a provisional ballot. If they have a problem, if you want to call me, 931-216-6745, we will get you some help so that you can actually cast your ballot for a candidate of your choice.
All right, there you go, Joseph. You have Jimmy's phone number and a method to answer your question. But what about absentee balloting? Has anything changed? Tristan, can you answer this question?
Nothing has changed with absentee voting. You can, there's a deadline that's important to know, and I'm looking that up right now. I don't have it by memory. But it's coming up soon. I believe it's next week. So you do have to observe the deadline to file your absentee, to receive an absentee ballot. But nothing's changed with that. That's available to everyone if you're going on vacation. If you aren't going to be here for some reason, you can file an absentee ballot.
Okay. Twitter user @Tara_Aaron asks, whatever happened to that challenge to Democrats voting in Republican primaries? Is that forbidden now? Jimmy, can you answer Tara's question?
I don't think it has been. Well, right now in Clarksville, Montgomery County, if you're a Democrat, you can't vote in a Republican primary. So I think it's still in play.
A question from our editors. What should mobile residents who move often do about the address on their license not matching up with their new residence? Tristan?
Bring a piece of mail indicating your new address. Your ID does not have to match. You just have to, just for your own proof, bring a piece of new mail with the current address and your name on it, and you should be fine.
Okay. And Tristan, what do you have to say to anyone listening who may feel uninspired, uninformed, who may just say, hey, I'm too busy to vote? What do you have to say to them?
Listen, I have to say, follow Please Vote Nashville on social media or visit us at pleasevotenashville.org. It will take about an hour to read through the ballot through our profiles. And it takes, I early vote every time. So check the early voting schedule. And I never wait in line for early voting. Usually it's very quick. I think that you make the time. I don't know what else to say. I understand feeling out of practice with it. But I think a lot of people are looking for ways to alleviate the stress and pressure they feel. I just encourage you not to turn to apathy and get a taste of a little blind optimism, because it really does. Every day, we can't extract ourselves from a painful history. We can't extract ourselves from capitalism if that's what we want. We can't extract ourselves from the waste and from climate change and all these things that are out of our control. But we do have little powers every day and little choices we can make every day. And we do our best. We fail, but every day we just try. And voting is a very small way that we make change. I think there's this idea that change is this big, huge thing, like you move mountains, but actually it's the small things, like, for example, offering your phone number to help somebody cast a ballot. It's these small little things like go online, download the ballot, break down, read about it, and vote. And that little drop becomes a wave. So I think it's just these little everyday things we can do to make our community better. And I really do feel like there is a difference in candidates, and it does matter who's on the school board for your children or for your neighbor's children. It does matter what judges are presiding over our criminal courts. These are things that are sort of out of everyday view. They're not as kind of celebrity driven as a presidential elections, but they actually have the most effect on you and your neighbors.
That is Tristan Gaspaderic of Please Vote Nashville. Tristan, thank you for joining us. Jimmy Garland is going to stay with us. We have to take a short break, but when we come back, we talk with a panel of folks who are working to get diverse communities registered and explain some of the challenges they face. And also, as always, tweet us your questions and thoughts at This Is Nashville. We'll be right back. I'm Khalil Ekalona, and this is Nashville. We are talking about voting and voter registration this hour. Monday, April 4th is the last day to register to vote in upcoming local elections. So Citizen Nashville is here to help inform you to exercise your right to vote. Recently, the group TIRRC, or Turk Votes, took part in Refugee Day on the Hill, and a few of their members shared a little bit about their experience. Here's a sample.
Yeah, so today we talked to our legislators about the importance of keeping our immigrant communities united and healthy. We asked them to vote no on bills that are harmful to our communities, whether it's our children, separating them from their families, whether it's our students, not letting them have equal access to education, and we also shared our stories.
The Day on the Hill is going great. We have talked to so many representatives. We are out here advocating for equal rights, equal protections, and professional licenses.
Hey, it was so awesome. It was my first day here on the Hill. I definitely learned a lot. I learned that our fight still isn't over, and we still have a long way to go, but that we're getting really close to it.
That was Sarhi Lara Gomez, Litsi De La Paz, Maya Salas. Joining us now is Pratik Dash of Turk Votes. Pratik, we heard Maya at the end saying the fight isn't over. What's this fight that she's talking about?
Yeah, thanks, Khalil. Thanks for having me. I think that, the fight is always ongoing, I would say, especially in a state like Tennessee. I like to say that we play a lot of defense. If you compare us to a soccer team, I like to say that we have 10 defenders, and we're kind of like, make sure the other team doesn't score. And then we kind of send one forward out there, and we're like, if you get a goal, you get a goal. I think that we've had a history of a lot of anti-immigrant bills and legislation over the years. We at Turk, the Tennessee Immigrant and Refugee Rights Coalition, and Turk Votes, we've killed over 200 bills, anti-immigrant bills that have come after our communities. And so really trying to hold the line and stay strong while, pushing a little bit of proactive legislation here and there when we can, and sending our one forward out there to score a goal.
What inspired you to get involved?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I am pretty much born and raised in Tennessee. I was born in Texas, moved to Tennessee when I was very young. And I remember after 9/11, I was in 8th grade. I was going to school in Franklin. So back then in Franklin, Tennessee, I like to say that my school was black, white, and me. And as a person with brown skin, that was when 9/11 happened. And I remember I went to my parents and wanted to get $20 to donate to the victims of the families. And I went to donate that money. I was giving the money to one of the parent volunteers who was collecting the money. And I reached out and was going to give her the $20. And she pushed my hand back and said, "Sweetie, we don't take money from terrorists."
Whoa.
And so I think, it's my first ever, overt racism that I had ever felt in my life. And I think that, what drives me every single day to do this work is I don't want anyone to ever feel the way that I felt in that moment. I understand that I can't lift all of that and make all that change just by myself, but, there are other folks that have felt that don't want their kids and their grandkids to feel that. And we want to make sure that we can take small steps forward so that no one has to experience anything like that again.
The fact that she said sweetie before she dropped this racist bomb on you, I can only imagine how that must have felt. I apologize for that, my friend, and I'm glad to see that you've bounced back and you've become inspired to make some change. Let me introduce our next guest. Jeremy White is with the organization Free Hearts. Jeremy, tell me about the work you do with them.
So I started off as a fellow, being formerly incarcerated, coming through the reentry process. They helped me during the reentry process and gave me toolkits and knowledge. Went through a leadership development program, ultimately became a trainer, and just really learned about what voting restoration, voting rights really means to the individual, especially individuals who are justice impacted. Free Hearts has had a big impact on my life's journey since I've been out. That's helped me to excel in many ways and finding just resources in a network. And that's why I continue to work with Free Hearts.
After you were released from prison, did you find it difficult to regain your voting rights?
So initially, when I got out, the process itself was just, it was difficult because you just don't have a sense of direction. And once you do get a sense of direction, you have to navigate so many entities, for example, the parole board, the criminal court clerk's office, the election commission's office, getting things in mail, trying to navigate transportation and really trying to go through the reentry process. And it is a difficult process.
So Jimmy Garland from the NAACP is still with us. Jimmy, from what Jeremy and Pratik have shared with us, there appears to be like a theme of voter disenfranchisement. What are you seeing in terms of barriers to the ballot box?
Well, the barriers to the ballot box stems from people in leadership position that have no compassion for others. You know, in 1965, when I I guess I was about 16 years old at that time. I remember Dr. King and all of those guys walking up down the street singing Kumbaya. Now is the time for us as a community, whether you're in Nashville, Clarksville, whatever city you're in, we need to come together and make sure that we join around the ballot box and make sure that we cast ballots for our own candidates that we can identify with. I understand what Patrick's talking about. I understand what Jeremy is talking about. We have the NAACP have partnered with some organizations that deal with, I think the state conference and TRC is partners. Also, Free Heart is a partner of the NAACP. We work with them during our voter restoration that we host here in Clarksville two to three times a year. Trying to make sure that the people that return home after incarceration can get their ballots back. But I encourage them to be encouraged because the bottom line is, you know, America is trending brown. And people are very concerned and they are running scared, Khalid, because of that. But one thing I know about my people are not vengeful. My people will do the right thing. And all we have to do is continue to march up that road that we've been talking about, you know, and let nobody turn us around. Because when we allow them to turn us around, we're moving backwards. But we must go forward. And our slogan today is, when we fight, we win.
Pratik, what about people whose first language is not English, yet they're citizens and have the right to vote? What difficulties do they face in the process of voting?
Yeah, I think that's a great question. You know, a lot of our communities who are not English speaking, you know, I think that a lot of the materials like voter registration forms, the online voter registration form, all of that is in English. And if you look at other states, there's states like California and Florida that, have translated those materials and given an opportunity for these community members to register and be a part of the civic process. But by not switching those, I think that some communities may see it as a form of voter suppression. I think the other thing that non-English speaking and just communities of color in general kind of deal with is that, I think candidates, when they are knocking on doors and trying to mobilize folks to vote, what's happening is they don't go after what we call low propensity voters. So I'll give you a good example, Khalil, and I'll try and be quick. I know we're running against the clock here, but suppose we have 7 people voting and 3 of them are regular voters, right? There's one person that is registered but doesn't really vote a lot. One of them is a green card holder, can't vote yet. And 2 of them are people who they registered but they can't get out of work. Well, when a candidate goes to knock on doors, they're not going to go knock on the doors of the 4 people that aren't regular voters. They only care about the 3 regular voters, right? And so what's happening is 3 is not 50% of 7. So everyone talks about how democracy is amazing and majority rules. Well, majority, can't vote if everyone who isn't eligible to vote isn't voting. And I think I can speak for the 3 organizations here. All 3 organizations, Turk especially, and the NAACP and Free Hearts all believe that democracy only works when all eligible voters are voting, and then when the majority of that group actually ends up voting, that is when democracy is functioning properly. And I think that's kind of our mission at Turk and Turk Votes.
If you're just tuning in, this is Nashville, and I'm your host, Khalil Ekalona. We're talking this hour about voter registration with people who are working to get voting access to some of our state's most disenfranchised communities. So, Jeremy, people who were formerly incarcerated face legal barriers to retaining their voting rights, but there's also obstacles they face from general public perception. Talk to me about that. What is the public misunderstanding?
Well, I got an opportunity to speak at the Cordell Hall building in front of the House Subcommittee on Criminal Justice Reform. And when I spoke, the one thing that the topic that I brought forward was substance, not balance. And the reason why I did that is because there's a lot of substance to the criminal justice reform legislation that's being brought forward. There's wonderful legislators, House representatives and senators that are really working hard and trying to see it, but it's not balanced. It's not balanced in a way that's going to have the greatest impact statewide in communities that have been disenfranchised. And we have to find a way as communities and as leaders to be able to have a comprehensive dialogue about finding that balance and bringing individuals out in a way where voting is something that we enjoy to do, that we enjoy the individuals that are representing us, and that we don't have individuals layering oppression on top of oppression. So a big part of being formerly incarcerated, when you go through that process, you're already in a state of oppression in prison. And coming out, you don't want to continue to have to face layers of that from a system. So oftentimes I beg the question, we always look at the risk and needs assessments of individuals in prison. What are we doing to look at the system and the impact that it's having on the people in general?
Jimmy,
just the overall message. So thank you.
Jimmy, what do you say some misconceptions people have about voting?
Well, one of the main ones is they'll tell me that my vote don't count. And then there are some that say, well, only crooks run for public office. And my response to those people that say those things is that, well, yes, your vote will not count if you don't vote. The bottom line is, if and also those that say that only crooks are actually in politics, I ask them, are you a crook? Bottom line is, I know that I'm a Christian. I know that I love God, and I know God loves me. I asked my bishop several years ago if I could run for school board because I wanted to be an advocate for the children.
Okay.
And Go ahead.
I want to thank you so much. That's Jimmy Garland. He was also along with Jeremy White. They were joined by Pratik Dash. Thank you all so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Thanks to all of our guests for offering their insights, expertise, and experience. We want to thank everyone who tuned in this hour. Tomorrow, after over a decade of service, the Little Pantry That Could is ending operations. We explore the effect of that loss and talk to others who are working to address hunger in their communities. This is Nashville is a production of WPLN News and Nashville Public Radio. Listen back at thisisnashville.org or wherever you get your podcasts. Special thanks to Jucola Lane, Sekou Franklin, Nat Morales, D. Patrick Rogers, and Juliana Kim. Our producers are Steve Harouche, Rose Gilbert, Tasha A.F. Lemley. Our digital lead is Anna Gallegos Cannon. Michaela Elias is our technical director. Our executive producer is Andrea Tudhope.